Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And I know you've heard it a million times. You got to be consistent with your content. You got to keep going. But sometimes that feels a little overwhelming. And so today I am so excited that Nina Froriep is back in my guest chair. I first connected with her with conversations about video and video marketing, but today she has really pivoted a little bit to focusing on LinkedIn strategy and content creation strategy for business owners and primarily service providers.
Yeah.
And I am so excited to talk about all of this with you. Nina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Again, absolutely. That is one of the privileges of having your own marketing podcast is you get to decide who do you want to talk to, and I really wanted to talk back with you again.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely thrilled to be back and to be talking about what I love talking about.
So, because you do love talking about LinkedIn, and I got to tell you, that has become my favorite platform over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Let's kind of dive into it and talk about consistency on LinkedIn and what does that look like? Do I have to be there every hour? What does effective consistency mean?
Exactly. So this is one of the many reasons I absolutely adore LinkedIn because you do not need to be there every hour. Sometimes don't even need to be there every day. So the way LinkedIn works, I'm more of a creative person, but I always like to refer back to the algorithm because it's sort of a untangible, tangible thing that we kind of know how it behaves, kind of, with the emphasis on kind of. So on LinkedIn, the beauty of it is it's a professional platform. It is service-based entrepreneurs should really be on LinkedIn. It's the platform to be on. And if you post, I always tell my clients, posting once a week consistently, same day, same time, is more effective for reach and more people seeing what you're posting than posting 5 times a week all over the place. So the consistency factor on LinkedIn is really being supported by the algorithm because you're kind of training the algorithm when to look for your stuff and when to put it in front of more people. And you're also training the people that are following your content at the same time, right? So it's sort of a matter of training, like Pavlov's reflex, right? 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning, boom, there it is. The post that we post whoever posts. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's going to get me rethinking a lot of my strategy because I definitely put a lot more content on LinkedIn. These days, I just have a lot of content.
Right.
So, but that really relieves a lot of the pressure if I just be consistent, always the same time, always the same days, make
Yep.
sure that the algorithm knows where to look for you.
Yep.
Okay, so now I put it out there, and yeah, the algorithm is kind of looking at it, kind of not. I've heard all sorts of conversations about pods and groups
Yep.
to game the algorithm system. How do I really do that effectively so it doesn't
Right.
feel spammy,
Yeah.
but it gets me that reach?
It gets to the reach. So there's a fine line between, pod or not podding. And I run a LinkedIn engagement group, and I very much on purpose do not call it a pod because a pod can be triggering to a lot of people. Um, and if you do like a pod with, automations and hundreds of people in it, that is actually also by the LinkedIn contract not allowed. But if you have we're a group, a loose group of like 30 people right now, I am looking to grow it into many more, but then it's going to be, several different groupings. So we do support one another's posts within an hour of posting, but we do look for each other's content organically. So we're not like sharing links. We do share the links so people can take a peek at it and say, "Oh, here it is." But we do look for it organically. Makes a huge difference by finding people's posts by either searching their names or by looking in your feed for the posts and then engaging with them. And it just there's something about, there's the whole algorithm, the numbers, how many people have seen it, how many people have commented, how many people have liked it. But there's a whole other layer that's happening on LinkedIn, which happens with a lot of my clients, especially those who are also consultants, for instance, where if I'm posting something, I want to make sure that if Joe Schmo, who works for company ABC, looks me up to see whether I really am that coach that I say I am, that they see that my stuff, meaning my post, has engagement and is not just sitting there with one like and no comment.
Hmm.
So there's also sort of that, it's like a business card, it's like a calling card, your profile and your feed. So having a couple of, maybe 20, 30 people like, and you have maybe 10 or so comments, you make sure you comment on the comment. Now it's 20, or maybe not everybody left a really good comment, so maybe it's just 16. But it just makes the whole thing alive and like not just posting to crickets, which no one wants to do.
Absolutely. And I think when I go, and I know I do this, when somebody applies to be a guest on the podcast, I always look at their LinkedIn profile and do they have engagement? And that's credibility. Oh, they have an audience. They are respected by other people.
Yes.
Oh, they're out there talking about themselves and nobody is paying attention. Maybe they don't have that much to say. So I totally get that that type of consistent engagement from your community really helps. So
Yeah.
let me ask you another question, because I've seen this and I've been involved with some different groups, and everybody's really excited in the beginning, and they're
Hmm.
liking and they're commenting and they're sharing, and then people drift away.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you keep members of your engagement group engaged?
Yeah.
And when do you cut them loose and say, this
Yeah.
isn't working?
So as long as they pay and they're not being rude, they're in. That's the bottom line. So I have there's a little rule book that everybody gets when they start with me. So there's a couple of layers here. Number one is to answer your first sort of overarching question. If I have a group of 30 people, I will have on any given day probably between 10 and 15 posts. I allow everybody to post on the days they want to post. So I could choose, Monday through Friday. We do 10 a.m. Eastern. And some people will say, "Oh, I'll post Monday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday," and then in reality, they're posting maybe Tuesday, maybe Friday, and that's fine. The one rule I have where somebody will get to themselves kicked out if they don't abide by that rule is on the day where you are asking the other members to comment on your post, you better be doing it for them as well. And if you're not, I'll give you a warning. I'll give you maybe even a second warning, but then you're out.
Mhm.
So that is really important, that there is reciprocity in the engagement, because otherwise it doesn't work. The other thing I found is I've run freebie pods, like actual just transactional pods, and yes, 50 people in it, maybe 10 engage. I find that the people who have VAs and have systems in place and are a little bigger companies than, around the $100,000 revenue mark, have their shit together and they will be taking advantage of it. I also have found that people who pay for something use it a lot more. So having people pay for our LinkedIn engagement group, definitely the payment factor is a pain factor that definitely helps in people actually being engaged. And then what we do, and this is something we emphasize very strongly, is we have monthly teaching group calls. We have a LinkedIn resource library that is growing by the day. I'm constantly putting new resources in there or updating older ones. So there is always something to be learned, something to if there is a movement. And the other thing is, uh, at, at this point still, we have a super homogenous group. Not in We have a diverse group, but everybody has the nice level of being a nice human being. Um, and that just makes you want to not disappoint the others. You want to participate with it's sort of like an accountability that
Mhm.
happens all by itself without me having to stand there with a ruler and saying, I'm going to,
Absolutely.
tap your hand if you don't post. It just happens naturally. And
Y-
that I love the most about the group is that natural, it's more than just a transactional pod. It's really a group of people that enjoy each other.
And I think that is really the key is building that community on LinkedIn. And yes, you can do it on your own. Many people have, they've built that nice little group. But if you're looking to kind of accelerate the process,
Yep,
there's going to be a link to Nina's profile on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place for people to
absolutely.
find
Yes.
you, find out about you, see the benefits of this community in action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you. And it's also I'm in more than one pod that you can also be in several. The only thing you want to make sure is that they are posting at around about the same time. Although you can finagle it if it's not either. It's fine. I mean, the algorithm still loves things within. It's a 1 hour, then it's a 4 hour, then it's an 8 hour, then it's
Mhm.
a 24 hour time range. So you still have other opportunities. And I just was lucky that I helped set up all the other pods I'm in. So I always make sure that we're at 10 a.m. Eastern.
You know, if you start the club, you set the rules. Nina,
Exactly.
this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me talk about what I love talking.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to encourage anybody, if you're listening, if you're curious, be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with Nina on LinkedIn. And Nina, thanks for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, if you're looking for other resources for your business, check out morethanafewwords.com. You'll find hundreds of conversations just like this one, workbooks, webinars, and so much more. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.